Right, hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another Steam Deck video. Today we're taking a longer look at Path of Exile 2 on the Steam Deck. Yesterday the game released into early access and there was a lot of issues with trying to log in, trying to launch the game. The servers weren't working for almost close to 2 hours. And I did come up with a video that was really a quick look at the first 10-15 minutes into the game. Unfortunately, that doesn't really represent how the game actually runs on the Steam Deck. So today I'm coming up with another video testing all of the graphical settings and trying to progress a little bit further into the game so we can see truthfully how it actually runs on the Steam Deck. So without further ado, the first clip that we're currently looking at is the game set to the lowest possible settings and FSR set to ultra performance. Now, Path of Exile 2 does feature some upscaling options. Specifically on the Steam Deck, you can use FSR or NIS. For some reason, Intel XeSS is locked out, and there is also an option for NVIDIA DLSS, but obviously that's not going to work on the Steam Deck because it requires an NVIDIA card. But we did test out FSR and NIS, and NIS is basically a upscaling option that lowers the resolution to about 77% and then tries to upscale it from that, not dynamically. But I think FSR is superior here. So there are a couple of different environments that I tested the game in. I think I got up to the third zone, so that's about level 5. But we're also testing it here in one dungeon. And in the dungeon, the game obviously performs a little bit better. However, there are parts where there's a lot of monsters on the screen and it will drop below 60 FPS. So currently we are checking out FSR set to performance. So that's one level up from ultra performance. And the quality is a little bit improved. It's not so blurry. And in terms of performance, it is pretty much the same. It is trying to keep at 60. There will be some times when it drops to 55, but for the most part, it does manage to stay at 60. Now, for both of these, ultra performance and performance mode, battery life is about 2 hours and 40 minutes on the OLED Steam Deck. Now, setting FSR to balanced is where we are going to start to see the drop below 60 a lot more often, especially when you start casting more spells and there are more mobs on the screen. It will often drop to 50 FPS. Now, the next couple of clips that I have are actually a boss fight, and I died a couple of times here because I wanted to test it out with different settings, because on the boss fight it gets really chaotic, and we can see that it drops even to below 50 FPS on some parts, which is not really good, because this is a game where you can die very quickly, especially if you're playing on hardcore. Yeah. So we are testing it currently NIS. Now the game does look really good on NIS, but it's really the worst performing option in terms of performance and in terms of FPS. You can see that I am staying in the low 50s, even dropping down to the low 30s. Now the Path of Exile also features dynamic resolution. This is an option that will try to keep a 60 FPS by dropping the resolution. It's not really doing a good job at keeping 60 FPS, but it is a better option. So you can use FSR and you can use dynamic resolution at the same time. So if you set FSR to performance and keep dynamic resolution, at parts the game can become very blurry, but it will try to stay 60 FPS. The next video I have is just a test using an external controller, and this is actually the third zone of the game, and this is set to FSR set to performance. You can see that we're already not keeping even 50 FPS. It will drop below 50 when I'm in combat, so the more you progress into the game, the further the FPS is actually going to drop down. The Steam Deck, however, doesn't get really too hot. It gets to about 75 degrees, and on the OLED, the fan noise is really minimal. And of course the game has full controller support, and it actually feels pretty nice to play with the Steam Deck controls. Now this is the second zone. We have FSR set to quality, again on the lowest possible settings, and the second zone, as soon as you step in, you just drop 5 FPS just like that. So the first zone, I think it was very dark, so that's why we're getting more FPS, but this one is a lush forest, and it will start to lag a little bit here on the Steam Deck. I'm mostly staying in the 50s, but it will drop below 50 very often. So this is with FSR set to balanced, and I am testing out another new option that the game has, which is called Dynamic Culling. Now, Dynamic Culling will try to reduce effects on the screen, so some of the effects that come out from your spells, it will try to reduce that in order to keep a more stable FPS, but as you can see, it's not really doing a good job. In combat, we're dropping to low 40s, 45, 44, What you can expect really from this is with FSR set to anywhere between ultra performance to up to balanced, you will get around 55 FPS while walking around, and you can drop to even below 40 in combat. Now, the next thing I tried is setting this to a lower resolution from the actual Steam Deck. So the resolution currently is 1024 by 768. Game is set to windowed, and we have enabled Steam Deck's internal FSR, which can stretch the picture to fill the screen. So I have FSR set to balanced, I have dynamic culling on, and I have the Steam Deck FSR on, and it doesn't make much of a difference. Now the text becomes quite unreadable at this point, and the FPS doesn't really improve that much. Usually, when you lower the resolution and use the Steam Deck's internal FSR, you can get even up to 5 or 6 FPS more. But in this case, even though we are trying to stay above 50, as you can see, we can drop even below 30 at some point, and there might be stutters, which again, in this type of game, it's really not a good thing to have. Most of the time in combat with this, you will get around 45, 48 FPS. Now, I did try to increase the settings. We're currently playing with medium settings, so shadows are set to medium, some lighting settings are set to medium, and I have limited this to 30 FPS. Now, it is pretty stable like this at 30 FPS. It will not drop below 30 in combat. But again, you're kind of losing the smoothness of the game here. It will be pretty stable at 30 FPS, and it doesn't drop below 30 FPS even in combat. Now, the other upside of this is that you get a lot more battery life. So we're up to more than 3 hours of battery life here. Something like 3 hours and 35 minutes maybe on the OLED Steam Deck. When you're limiting this to 30 FPS, it is an option to consider, but I personally would like to have a little bit more FPS and just sacrifice on the visual fidelity. The last clip I have is with FSR set to performance, dynamic culling on. We are in the third zone. As you can see here, with everything even set to lowest settings, I am still getting around 40-45 FPS in combat. And as I said, this is something that is going to keep happening as you progress more into the end game and you face more enemies on the screen, and you have spells that really have more effects on the screen. So realistically, in the end game, you're probably going to be playing with 30 FPS or even lower than that. That's pretty much it for the video. I wanted to showcase all the settings I've tested on the Steam Deck. I think the game performs quite well, however, you can't really expect it to stay at stable 60 FPS. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you liked it, please don't forget to hit that like button. Comment below if you are playing Path of Exile 2 on your Steam Deck, and if you have any recommendations for your settings and how you run it, please let me know. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.